What is going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. Thanks for humoring me. I was having like some weird technical difficulties, but my name is Jack Allen. This is Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. And go follow me if you're not following me at Kojak Podcast. You want to support the show, got all the links and stuff like that. And hopefully, whenever people start trickling back in here, they'll let me know if I'm actually you can hear me. But I think it all looks good on my end. So I hope everyone's doing great. I don't think anything's too new since we there. What's up, gentleman? Skeptic, my good friend. I'm glad we can. I was like freaking out. Oh, thank you, love. Thank you for letting me know. So I don't know. I looked real briefly like at thanks, hey girl. All right. I'm so glad that it all looked all right. But I was trying to look like current events that I always like find some funny thing, but I don't know. I don't know. So, but lately though, Brandon, what's up? David, all the OGs are here. But yeah, so I've been listening to lots of audiobooks lately, and they're all just I'm listening to Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods. And I don't know if any of you, I mean, I'm sure you guys all know Graham Hancock's been on Rogan and stuff like that. And it was a pretty good book so far. I'm like kind of, I just listened to it, so I don't take notes and stuff. But it kind of all ties into what we've been talking about with the past like 6 episodes I've done on Templars and history that's been hidden and all this stuff like that. And the most fascinating things was the Mayans or the Aztecs. They were sacrificing 250,000 people per year. 250,000. And so I just find that funny because, everyone, all the woke and mainstream academia will tell you, oh, the white Europeans, they brought death and destruction everywhere they went. Well, I'm pretty sure they weren't, ripping out people's hearts out, 250,000 children, just cutting open them alive. And Dave says Graham Hancock not to be trusted. I totally agree, Dave. I take it for what it's worth. The book's he's very hard on Christianity. He's like that guy. He's the person I was just saying, like, oh, they've brought only death and destruction. That's what he says too, and he blames and it's like, I get that, yeah, I'd be upset too. Like, I wish the Spaniards didn't burn everything, all the records of the Mayans and the Aztecs, because they had somehow they didn't even build any of their things. They didn't create the writing system. They didn't create their math system. That was the Olmecs. But so, yeah, so the book's interesting. I love that, like, ancient history stuff. Oh, you're reading Unholy Alliance? Skeptic. So that's Peter Levenda. And sorry if I'm talking books first here, but I tried reading that, Skeptic. But after Peter Levenda was hanging out with Tom DeLonge, I started it. And then he's like, how do I say? He just reminded me of like a boomer take on Nazis, like they're the ultimate evil and everything like that. And that's so, in my opinion, and you'll have to let me know. I love his Sinister Forces book, but just the ultimate evil thing, like, dude, are you falling for the propaganda? Like, are you, what, you don't think America is just as evil? So that's the only reason why I stopped reading that book, Skeptic, but I bought it for $25 or whatever he's selling it for. But so you'll have to let me know what you think at the end of it, Skeptic. So anyway, this is our final installment of Gnostic America. And next book I'm working on is either on East India Trading Company, because that was like the first private military. They could wage war so we're either that. And then there was this also, I think I have Opium Inc. It's about the opium wars and stuff like that. So those are on the list. And I'm trying to think of what other books I have on the list. A few other, like architecture and stuff like that. But I'll probably branch away from the Templars just for a little bit. But I don't know. Matt from Great Deception just sent me an awesome one, Templars in Pennsylvania. So we're actually going to get into that tonight. So this episode, I feel like this is how it always ends. The fourth or the last installment of the book is where it all picks up. This one's easily the best. Last one I felt was a little dry. With this one, we're going to get into some awesome stuff so we'll just jump into it. In last episodes, we talked a lot about Francis Bacon being Shakespeare, cryptologist. I think that those people study Bigfoot, not a cryptologist. I don't know. He's big into codes and ciphers. and little winks and nods. And we talked about the Virgin Queen and how basically, and John Dee. And we talked about how John Dee was the inspiration for the Queen to go to America to try to stake out land of their own for the British. And also how this was really the beginning of interlinking, or I guess in most recent history, the interlinking of the occult and our elite. How all these kings and queens, they were all hanging out with John Dee. They're all doing these rituals. They're all talking to beings, demonic beings through his seeing stone. He has crystal balls and all this stuff like that. And so that just helped me. I'm sure I said this last episode. That helped me understand, well, one, it's not that outrageous that cryptozoology is Bigfoot. Maybe cryptographer is it. Yeah. But just that it shows that these are elites. Like when people are like, oh, they're not, that sounds ridiculous, they're practicing magic. Well, actually, no, it's not. There's a huge precedent that's been set for the past 500 years that the elite do these weird rituals, magic, orgies, and stuff like that, and they love it. They're all into it. So I really learned a lot about John Dee, and you guys can go check out those episodes if you haven't listened. But this one, we got treasure, we got lots of stuff. So we'll get into it. Well, Henry, the Sinclair family I wonder if any of you guys know any Sinclairs. I would love to just see if and I would ask them if they're a descendant of the Sinclair family. I'm a headhunter. I'm sure I've told you guys this. And so I saw a guy, Donald Sinclair, and I tried calling him, but he wouldn't answer. I wanted him to find out if Donald was related to Sinclairs, but probably not. But so anyway, they're just so important. They're literally the most important, one of the most important families to Freemason, Templarism, Rosicrucianism, and the reason because this is they helped create it. They helped the Sinclairs, St. Clairs, most likely because they were the French branch. They were one of the 10 or 11, I can't remember how many, original knights that started the Knights Templar, and they built this chapel, and it was in the Da Vinci Code, and I've talked about this chapel, the Roslin Chapel. I mean, ad nauseum. So if you haven't heard me talk about it, go look it up because it's beautiful. It's an amazing. I think it was started in the 13th. I'm sure I have it in the notes. So, but basically, Roslin Chapel. Okay, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but because we've talked about it just so much. But it once served as the ancestral home to Scotland's most powerful family, the St. Clair family or Sinclair family. So it's a church, right? Which would make you think it's a Christian church. It's a good church, but the imagery there is just is Christian symbolism with Celtic, pagan, Nordic religions, and which makes sense. He's a descendant of the Vikings. And then so on September 21st, 1450, it was dedicated for a saint. But see, this is what they do. And I'm not a big numerology guy. I don't know where, I kind of think it's silly sometimes. And now the more that I read, the more I see that there is so much, especially these guys in this 400-year time span, 13 to 17, 1800s. I mean, everything they did was based on numerology. So there is truth to it. I don't study numerology, but so regardless, they dedicated it on September 24th, 1450 for a saint, supposedly. But that also happens to be the autumnal equinox. It has fallen angels sculptures. It has serpents. And if you didn't know any better going here, you would say, am I in a Christian church or am I in like a pagan worship of an old church? Which isn't too far off because many of the Templar buildings all over Europe were built on top of pagan, not churches, but pagan worship centers. So I'm sure there's some connection here. I'm sure he didn't just randomly, he's the most powerful family in Scotland. He's got lots of land to choose from. I'm sure there's a reason why he picked this exact spot because all these dates, locations are so important from our ancient ancestors to our, Middle Age ancestors to it just kind of stopped, I guess, in the the 1900s or something like that. But it's filled with Freemasonry symbolism. Talked about that. 3 pillars, three levels of the Blue Lodge Masonry. Has the corn, but it was built before the corn was discovered. It has some other vegetable or something that doesn't make any sense if we were to believe the 1492 story. And so just some secrets. it's everything's hidden in plain sight here. Symbolism will be their downfall. Throw out a little cue line for anybody if you know that. But that's what this chapel has. It has all it has just all these symbols that we just talked about. Pagan winks and nods to the occult and esoteric thought and stuff like that. But it was originated the Sinclairs. They originated with the Norse invasion of northern France. And they're also connected to the church, the St. Clair, St. Sulpice, which is the French branch of the Sinclair family. And so we talked about this too. The Vikings, they came to Normandy, northern France. They conquered. Then William the Conqueror conquered Britain. So I have to learn more about that as well, because something here is the Vikings, controlled Europe. They took over Europe. They're the Anglo-Saxons, and that's an amazing. So I need to learn more because I'm very poor on that history. And David says they're restarting the QLARP, dude. I feel bad for those. We mock, people mock them, and it is mockable, but it's a lot of people that they know the world's wrong. In my opinion, they know the world's wrong. They're not the smartest, most people. They're not the brightest. They want to believe in good in people. And so they found something. Everyone wants to put their faith in something, and they always put it in the wrong thing. Put it in God, your family, your loved ones, your wife. But you can't explain that to these people. And it's $1 billion of propaganda, right? They can't. If your leader, the person you not worship, but you respect, you follow, you trust, if people keep attacking him, you take it personally. And that's what they did to Trump. And that locks you in to this. You're defending him constantly. And so even if maybe you notice something he does that's not good, you're in a constant state of defense. I'm sure this is like a psychology thing. And then you defend harder. You dig your feet in deeper, because nobody wants to be fooled or tricked. What's the Mark Twain? It's easier to convince somebody they have been tricked. Oh, it's harder to convince somebody you guys know the saying, tricked, blah, 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 blah. I totally agree, David. Military psyop for sure. But so the Sinclairs, they were nuts. They traveled. They fought, dude. This family, they traveled to Spain to fight the Islamic invasion, to push back the Moors and other North Africans. They fought in Jerusalem, obviously, with the Templars. And the church, the Rosslyn Chapel, contains images of the Grail Cup. And if Gnostics are to believe, this is to symbolize the Jesus' bloodline. I didn't know about this. 8-pointed rose is in the depiction of the Grail Cup. And so the 8-pointed rose is a Templar Rosicrucian symbolism. Like, you can't get any more you can't get any more in your face than that if you know anything about Templar symbolisms. Oh, in the carvings, we talked about the maze and aloe, another thing that is not in the old world. So more evidence that Christopher Columbus wasn't the first one. So the Norse origins are important to the Sinclair family, because they most likely, so the Vikings, Leif Erikson, all these people, they traveled to the New World, and the Sinclairs, being descendants of these of upper noble Vikings, I would bet that they've had some evidence and word of mouth documentation of the travels of previous Vikings. So this gave them an edge. Maybe it helped the Templars even in the beginning. Who knows how long they had this information? Yes. Thank you, Brandon and David. It's easier to convince a man of a lie than to convince him that he's been lied to. And Brandon's, it's easier to fool people than convince they've been fooled. You guys nailed it. Good job. Good job. Nice. That's it. So yeah. And so if it wasn't the Norse records that the Sinclair family was in possession of, another inspiration was the Niccolo Zeno. And we talked about him. We'll talk about him a little bit later in here too, but we talked about him in the Pirate series. And Zeno was just a buddy of Sinclair's. They met by pure chance, and they both traveled to the New World together multiple times, possibly 3 to 4 times. And their maps they had access to maps from either ancient times of ancient Phoenician maps or Chinese maps that Sinclair family was able to obtain in under the Solomon's Temple. And William St. Clair, he founded the chapel. He was the hereditary Grand Mason of all Masons in Scotland. And like I said, though, the Masons were not out in the open yet, but he was actually a real architect, a real mason. Even though there was speculative masonry, the most of these people, though, and this time they did craft masonry. They also did speculative masonry as well. And so he was a member also of the Order of the Golden Fleece, which is a French secret society. He was Order of the Knights of Santiago, which is a surviving Templar order and one of several Templar groups in Iberia. And then the Knights of Christ. And we talked about them in the pirate episode. They're the Portuguese so after the Templars get banned, the King of Portugal, he loves the Templars. He can't throw them out. So he says, just change your name. I'll be your king. And they make him their Grand Master. So they won't have that same problem they did with King Philip. And this is the group that Christopher Columbus would marry the daughter of a person who was a Knights of Christ. So the Templars became the Knights of Christ. This guy, he was a Knights Templar. He had a daughter totally by chance, everybody. This was not planned. It was just total coincidence. Her and Columbus got married. And that was how he was, that had nothing to, it's not like they had countless maps and diaries telling about the New World that helped Columbus get there or anything like that. No. And it was totally also random that Columbus picked his sails as white and red crosses. Who else has that? Oh, right. So the Sinclair Zeno Zeno expedition to the Americas. There's also the Kensington Stone. They say it's a hoax. I don't know if I know the Kensington Stone. There are runic carvings in Turkey Mountain, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Oh, yeah, I think you mentioned that last time, David. And we'll do one or two tonight, but it's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And I don't know how, I want to know what they're teaching kids in like elementary and middle school, if they're still teaching Columbus. I imagine they pull away from it a little bit with the woke world and all the, natives and stuff like that. But so Zeno and Sinclair, like I said, they made multiple trips to the New World. The way they met was like Zeno was like surrounded by, his ship was sinking, or he was surrounded by police or of the time or whatever. And Sinclair came in and saved all the gold and stuff that he had. And this made them friends. But Sinclair, they were kingmakers, right? They, even before the Norman invasion of 1066, when they were in the Viking rule, when the Vikings ruled England or Britain, you would have to clear things if you're going up to Scotland with the Sinclairs. I mean, like boss level status, dude. I mean, that's a powerful family. So that's why I asked I wonder if anybody, like, are there Sinclairs today? Is there any famous ones? Is there any really wealthy ones? But yeah, so Zeno's family, also a very powerful family. Both played roles in the Templar Crusades. So this is how far back this goes. It stems from going to the Jerusalem and something like, again, what could bring together two rich, powerful families? I guess money, but enough to make one save the other. There's this bond here. There's something greater than just like, I don't imagine Henry or William St. Clair, when he saw Zeno or a pirate, like a ship being cornered, he was like, we need to help them. It's our Christian duty to help these people and to risk our lives. No, it's not. Ooh, Sinclair Petroleum. I'll have to look that up, David. I've never heard of that. I wonder again, I wonder if there's a relation to it. And they were talking to these Orkney deep sea fishermen who talked about sailing west to the Atlantic. And now fishermen, they're not like learned men. They're not writing maps, right? It was word of mouth that they talked to each other. And the Sinclairs started talking to these Orkney fishermen, and they told them about how if you go this way, this is where they go to fish. And they told them, they didn't call it this, but basically these fishermen were going all the way to Canada and Newfoundland. And they met the natives there. And again, is this in the history books? They say it's a hoax. They say it's not real. But these Orkney fishermen relayed the information to Sinclair. They said these people, they didn't speak any language they recognized, but they had books written in Latin. And the fisherman, he was even invited to visit 20 chiefs in the country. He was also may have been as far south as Florida, even the Yucatan, and he was stranded. So after a few years, he traveled all over the New World. And he was eventually able to build a ship to carry him home. And he was gone for 2 decades. I mean, imagine coming back in 20 years after you just left to go fishing. That's a long fishing trip. That's a very long, I'm not a fisherman, but that's a long fishing trip. And so is there any other evidence of Sinclair and Zeno's landings? From Nova Scotia, Massachusetts, there is so much evidence of their landing there. There's inscribed of a heraldry of one of their knights in stone in Fall River. There was a suit of armor left behind in Newport, Rhode Island, where a controversial tower is built. And that's the only one we're going to go over in a few seconds here. But the Sinclairs, Vikings were smart. They didn't just make one. Yes, the fish stories, David. Yes, exactly. The cod would block their, very good, dude. That's awesome. Great memory. Great memory. But so first of all, a knight of armor is left behind. How history doesn't say, well, that's a little odd. I wonder why there's Christopher Columbus just got here, but there's a suit of armor. Huh. Weird. To a place he hasn't been yet. That's odd. Maybe they left it there for them. Yes. And they traded it. That's probably what history will tell you. But the Sinclairs, like I said, they were because they were so closely related to the Vikings. They talked to these fishermen. Norse Vikings, they wouldn't travel one long shot. They would island hop because they were experts in Greenland and Iceland. So that's the way most likely Sinclair and Zeno got to the New World. It wasn't on one big trek. They would just basically stop, refuel, rest, whatever, continue to the next island until they made it to America. And many documents also confirm the journey. In 1786, a historian identified a man called Zeno and a quote unquote prince, Henry Sinclair. And so the reason why Zeno called Henry Sinclair prince because they didn't have a knight in Italy or lord in Italy, I guess. So he just called him a prince. And that's why this historian said that there was a guy named Zeno and a prince that came here before and much earlier than Christopher Columbus. And the Zeno letters reference things on this new land that are there today. So they, men and women, I guess, back in those days, wrote in diaries, wrote long, and especially on these long trips, they talked about what they saw. And Zeno, which historians will tell you the Zeno letters are counterfeit, they're hoaxes, they're copies, but no, they're not. But all of his letters, he has all this evidence of things that you could point to today. Like he talks about this smoking hole in Newfoundland. There's this smoking hole right in that area, and it has something to do with like stalactites or stalagmites, all these, whatever. But the point is, the evidence is there. There's so much evidence that you could point out. Some historians even tried to map out what Zeno was talking about in his diary and letters. They were able to match up timing when they got there, letters with the dates. And regardless, I don't want to, because I feel like every episode we've gone too much into that evidence part. You guys believe this. I don't think it's that hard to. So there's tons of evidence. Regardless, though, this is even huge, bigger. Zeno and Sinclair maps were not published until 160 years later after they died. But when they were incorporated into the Mercator, the Ortelius, and the Russelli maps. So if these guys are hoaxes, if their letters are a huge scam to be put on the people to make what? How are you making money on this? But, if this is a big scam, why did Mercator use the information that Sinclair and Zeno brought back and incorporate it into his maps if it was just a hoax? That doesn't make any sense to me. And not just Mercator, those three other guys, even though I don't know those maps are. But they were even used by England and France, the two most powerful naval powers of the time, was utilizing Zeno and Sinclair maps and, drawings, blah, blah, all these things like that. And so I wanted to go into the Rhode Island Tower because this is an interesting story. So anybody of you guys that live in Rhode Island, please tell me if you've been there. So there's this thing, it's called the Viking Tower or Newport Tower. And it's this rounded tower. It's gray. It has arches, and the arches are about 10 feet above the ground. It's 24 feet in diameter. Walls are 3 feet thick, and it's about 28 feet tall. And since there's only 10 of us here, Newport Tower, Rhode Island. I wanted to look it up anyway. So, this is perfect, guys. Let's take a look at this. This is sick. It's very cool. Here, present here. So this is the Viking Tower. So for people listening, essentially, I don't know how they built it, but it's tons of stones, and they built like these these arches. So there's big poles with like of stone and arches, and then they built on top of the arches like the second floor. Ooh, the very Huguenots. I remember you said that the Dominican tribe who sacrificed children, and I based on I don't want to get too off of that. There's something there too, David. Right? Like all these the New World, the Aztec, all these people, 250,000 sacrifices a year. But they had all this knowledge to do other things. It makes it just again solidifies this Nephilim came down, in the beginning of time. They taught humanity these skills, the sciences, fire, alchemy, all this stuff that we didn't need to know to live a happy and contentful life. And they taught this to our long ago ancestors. And in order, though, to use that information, these gods required sacrifices. Does that sound like a benevolent God that says, hey, that 8-year-old girl that you just kidnapped because you slaughtered her family, cut out her beating heart. Otherwise, I'm not going to give you a raindrop this summer, right? That's, so people love to point at Europe, love to point at white people as being the ultimate evil. Evil has existed since the dawn of time. You can't blame one group. Everybody, all of our ancestors were pretty wild, right? They were to today's standards. But okay, so that was the Newport Tower. So 3 feet thick. In total, it's about 28 feet tall. And the British used the tower to store munitions during the Revolutionary War. And when they had to retreat, they had all their munitions in the Newport Tower. They blew it up. And this just shows you again how amazing this was built by somebody who knew architecture. It just took the roof off. It did nothing else. It didn't break. It's still standing. We just looked at the photos of it. I mean, could you could we set a munition off in one of our houses of today? What do you think would happen? Do you think we just have a little hole? No, you would crumble your house. It's just amazing. These people were so good at building things. Every culture has a history of human sacrifice and cannibalism. Agreed. Pressy, you're so right. We do live in a very odd, fascinating realm. But regardless, guys, that tower had over 200 tons or 400,000 pounds of stone. So obviously this wasn't just done overnight. Sinclair did not just build this tower by himself and say, you know what, I'm waiting for my return ship to come pick me up. I'm going to build something like Legos. No, 400,000 pounds of stone. I mean, again, we talk about, this isn't like a comparable to the Great Pyramid or any other of these huge megaliths, but it is impressive that without power tools, someone built a 400,000 pound structure. And to say so right now, the current historians will tell you they call it Viking Tower, but to suggest that the Vikings built this tower, totally ridiculous. Why is it ridiculous? Because the Vikings did not make structures like this. They made temporary structures that were practical. Maybe it was to smoke fish, to live in for 3 months while they hunted the area. But they wouldn't build. There is no stone Viking tower anywhere in the Norse area. And so the Newport Tower, I guess it has some practical purposes. It could be a house. I don't know. You could sleep in it. And I don't know. But it helped determine, what it did do is it helped determine the solstices of the cycles of the sun and moon. Always comes into play in all of our Templar lore and what they did. It was all behind this. So also, it was built in the exact measurements of a Templar baptistry. By chance. Totally, by chance. That wasn't on purpose. And the Templars, they had several old world octagonal circle-shaped chapels, churches. They're the one Sanctus Clare. What is that? Sanctus Clare. Sanctus Clare Chapel in France and the Orpheus Church in Sinclair-owned Orkney Island. Oh, so you're telling me Sinclair also had a church that was a circle in the islands he owned on the way to America? No way. That one wasn't built. The one in America wasn't built by Sinclair, though. And these round octagon are found in Portugal, Templar headquarters, Ireland, site of the Cistercian monastery, who helped get the Templars started, and other Templar locations. And the Cistercians are they're closely linked with the Templars. They're also great builders. Some of their bridges still exist to this day. So regardless, the tower supposedly was not built until the 17th century, according to historians. So 1600s, that was built. And they called it a stone mill. They said it was a flour mill. Problem with that, you don't normally put fireplaces in a flour mill. You might start a fire. That wouldn't be good if that's your profession. And historians will even tell you that Benedict Arnold possibly built the tower. The Benedict Arnold. And lastly, to say that this is a pre-colonial structure is ridiculous. There is an identical tower in Warwickshire, England. So in that one in Warwickshire, England, was built by the most renowned architect of England, Inigo Jones. So if Inigo built the one in Warwickshire, while he's building like very important things for the monarchy, for the royalty, for, tons of money, I guess he said, let's go do this again in the New World. I'm bored over here. Let me leave this prestigious, well-renowned, very expensive position and let's go build one in this new world. It doesn't, no, I'm not sold at all. So last part of Sinclair, Sinclair entrusts this, and this is how it connects to Oak Island. This is my favorite part of this whole book, because I watched that stupid show on the History Channel before. But so Sinclair, he's getting old. He entrusts his daughter Elizabeth with all of his knowledge of his colonies he set up in the New World, directions, maps, diaries, et cetera, and he eventually makes like a secret trip, and so that's why he gave her all this information. And she ends up marrying this guy, John Drummond, who's one of the wealthiest families in Scotland, and his ancestral home was 1 mile away from Roslyn Chapel. Benedict Arnold had died at the Battle of Saratoga. They'd have named the state after him. You're probably right, dude. I don't know enough about just the he was a traitor, so I'll have to look that. The show sucked me into the last however many years. Well, Brandon, perfect. So I'm about to go over it. So awesome. This will help you enjoy the story even more. But so Elizabeth, she marries this rich guy, John Drummond. They had 3 sons. One son, John the Scot, he married this girl, and this is going to all make sense in a second. Married a girl, Caterina Lordello, in 1422. Thus, this joined the Sinclair family with the Bartolomeo Purcello's family. And do you remember him from our Columbus episode? He was the governor of this island, Porto Santo, and Bartolo, Bart. We're just going with Bart. His daughter was Philippa Peristello, from the woman that married Christopher Columbus. So this is how Columbus got the maps. Sinclair got it from the Solomon, under Solomon's temple, possibly from his Viking ancestors, possibly from a few other people. And he has a daughter. She gets married. They have kids. One of the kids has a daughter who marries Christopher Columbus. I like Bart. So here we go. My favorite part, the Oak Island Treasure Vault. So the Sinclair family, they served as the guardians of the Templars and the Masons in Scotland with their hidden treasure. So England's gaining power over Scotland, and they need to hide their money, right? So what do? They bring a bunch to Nova Scotia, where the New World hasn't been explored yet by Europe. Sinclair kind of has, this is going to be the ultimate protection. Only very people in this secret society are able to identify, to know that the New World even exists and what's there and all those kind of things. So Sinclair, he picks this spot high on the hill, and today it's known as New Ross. Oh, imagine that. Why is it called New Ross? It probably has nothing to do with Roslyn Chapel at all. No. And it's directly across from New Ross today, where the spot he buried his treasure. Oh, nothing other than a Freemasonic lodge. What are the odds of that? So this is what we know. Something about Oak Island. Nova Scotia, New Scotland. Is that really true, skeptic? That looks right to me. Damn, dude. That's amazing. They didn't bring that up in the book at all. See, skeptic, some of you guys always give me the awesome facts. So thank you, dude. Great. See, even Liv Allen's, look, she said mic drop for you. But regardless, this is the facts of Oak Island. Something was planted deep deep before 1795, much earlier than 1795. But the reason why we say definitely before that was because in 1795, three boys, they rode to the island and they noticed something weird, like under a tree. And what kind of tree was it? Does anyone want to guess? An oak tree. We're going to get skeptic on an episode for sure, Miss Liv. And so they started digging, because what young boys, I mean, how many of us, I'd like to dig because I was hoping to find buried treasure. These kids actually got a chance to do it. I mean, how awesome would that be? Three of your buddies in 1700s where you don't have mandatory schooling, your parents, no one's worried you're going to get kidnapped. And you say, we're going to go out, and you row your boat and you go with your buddies and dig in a hole on an island. I mean, you can't get much better than that. That sounds like heaven right there. And they started digging. And so also odd, Bacon and Sinclair, they're all Templars, they're Rosicrucians, they're connected in the secret society. And the Templars, because of Francis Bacon, had hands in Shakespeare. And one of the Shakespeare's quotes or lines, whatever they're called, and it's this: bury so much gold under a tree and never after to inherit it. And so it's not for sure that Sinclair buried the treasure. He was involved with this. Some speculate Bacon was involved, but the Templars, the Rosicrucians, eventually Freemasons, they were involved with burying this treasure. So it goes right in line that Shakespeare, who was Francis Bacon, would write this line after he knows that this treasure is buried here. And again, the line in Shakespeare is, bury so much gold under a tree and never after to inherit it. Captain Kidd, he was a pirate. We kind of briefly touched on him a few times. He got a map from a guy he kidnapped who was a Templar, or a guy that he knew was a Templar, gave him a secret map. He also stopped on the Oak Island, supposedly depositing treasure there that he stole from an Indian noble. They have a big word, a word with an M that starts with it, but just it was a cache of royal jewels and booty from these Indian nobles. So the boys at 3 feet deep, they're digging. They find a flagstone, a stone that's not found on the island. They keep digging. At 10 feet, they find a platform of oak planks. They remove those. They keep digging. At 20 feet, they find more oak planks exactly 10 feet later. And then they hit 30 feet, and that was as far as these young guys could dig. And I'm impressed that they got 30 feet dug. I never put that much effort into it digging in my backyard, but 30 feet's a lot. But so they came back, they said, guys, please, or adults, does anybody want to do this? There's treasure, or there's something in here. So a doctor, he joined, he dug more. And then the doctor hit a point that was the shaft was completely booby trapped. So already, guys, though, we're at least 40 to 50 feet deep. Could you imagine digging 50 feet without power tools? I guess you pulley system the dirt up. I mean, it's got to be a whole process. I just found that, just thinking about that is crazy. But so what he realized, this doctor, that is if he hit like a certain way or he tried to keep digging past, it would flood the tunnel. And he was at 90 feet deep when he found this tunnel. 90 feet. Hey, Brandon got it before I did it. 90 feet deep he was at. And so to do this alone is just amazing. On the other side of the island, there's a bay. So the way they did is they dug a shaft 100 feet deep, at least. Could be more, but probably 100 feet on the highest part on the hill on the island. Then they went to the other side of the island, dammed the bay, dug in to get into the tunnels. From there, made sure that whatever way they set it up, if you hit this booby trap, it would flood the whole tunnel. And that's what they did. I mean, that's insane. They said drains, and it was just such a complicated process. And none of these guys are they're not, they didn't have architecture or engineering school back then. I mean, this is a brilliant person who figured this out. They're hiding something very special there. Clearly. I mean, why would you spend, this sounds like a project that would take years to do. And what really is in there, though? And Brandon's talking about how there's some treasure was 70 feet deep there. And so I wouldn't be surprised that there like gold might have been higher up. I think Brandon was right. I remember they found something very small at like 70 feet or 80 feet. But was this what you would do if you had a gold? I mean, if you were hiding gold, you would want it accessible for your family or what have you. I mean, if you wouldn't want, I wouldn't want to bury my precious metals if I had millions of dollars in gold and silver. I wouldn't want to hide it so difficult that if my family needed it after I'm gone, it would take them 5 years to get to it. No, I wouldn't do that. So it makes me think that something more special or more important is hidden as the treasure or what they're hiding with this this huge elaborate booby trapped shaft. And so here, another point why I don't think it's just gold. Our boy Francis Bacon, he left detailed instructions where to hide his manuscripts when he died. And one of the locations he wanted them to be put, Nova Scotia. Huh. Weird. What are the odds of that? And so 2 men were tasked with hiding and maintaining Bacon's estate when he died. One of the guys was specialty. This was his buddy, the guy in charge of his estate. His specialty was recovering ore from flooded Cornish mines. And after Bacon died, he disappeared for 2 years. And the current owners of Oak Island, they say it's Francis Drake. That's his treasure. And I think that's what my other book said. This author disagrees. He says that Drake, this is incorrect because Drake was never unaccounted for many years like that. Health, women, partying, et cetera, et cetera. He wouldn't have had enough gold to justify building a vault like this totally across the globe. Brian, what's going on, dude? Thanks for coming in, buddy. Thank you for coming in. Allegedly, there's a back door to walk in and access. Brandon, watch where we go here. I wonder if the show brought this up next. So not Francis Drake, just because he doesn't have enough money. Oh, here we go. So Brandon, tell me if this is in the show. So there's tunnels on Oak Island, not just this shaft, and these tunnels are thought to connect to more than one island. One of these tunnels, other islands, has a spiral staircase leading underground, and that spiral staircase has been found on an island near Oak Island. So could you imagine that? What if Oak Island's treasure, they built 100 feet deep shaft, booby trapped it with floods, but really, maybe Brandon's right. They used these tunnels that connected to another island to be like a secret access point to get to the treasure. I mean, again, this is without power tools. This could be anywhere from any time before 1793, most likely around the 1500s. Brilliant, dude. Brilliant. Brilliant people. Just so brilliant. And also important to note is the closest town to Oak Island is called Lunenburg. Lunenburg was named for the man who was the Duke of Brunswick and Lunenburg. And Augustus, this guy, Lunenburg, Augustus, who would become King George II. And I don't think it must be, I'm guessing, of like Bavaria or Brunswick. I don't know where that was. But regardless, he was a Rosicrucian as well, also involved with Bacon. Unless they're talking about King George, I don't think they're talking about the British monarchy. But let me just see what Brandon said. Brandon said, other tunnels, yes. Spiral staircase, no. On the show anyway. Interesting. But yeah, so that was the Oak. God only knows what's there. Oh, and I don't think I brought this up. John Dee and Bacon, we talked about Francis Bacon's vaults, that he worked with a guy who was, good at dealing with flooded mines and stuff like that. Well, there was another vault that his vault. And so in one of the rivers, he dams the river and puts his vault, then removes the dam. So now the river is just flowing over this vault with all of his manuscripts and all this secret research and information and stuff like that. And he didn't just keep it there. His buddy dams the river again because he didn't like the spot. Maybe somebody started asking questions, and he moves it to somewhere else. So clearly this skill, it's not widespread. It's between brilliant men or women, brilliant men at this point. And I just found that crazy, dude. Just so fascinating. How did you think of the amount of work it would take to dam a bay And I know it's a small island. I don't know how big Oak Island is. It's not very large. But to dam a bay and dig 100 feet with shovels, is there hidden technology? It just doesn't make any sense to me. We need to call Geraldo Rivera to help us open the vault. All right, I got him on speed dial, David. I'm going to hit him up. But, it's crazy, right? Just crazy. Okay, so that was the Oak Island. And this is like, I know I keep saying this, but it's going to get real crazy quick. So we're going to talk here, the Rosicrucians in Pennsylvania. So this has near and dear in my heart because I am a Pennsylvanian. So no one did more for Bacon's vision than William Penn. That's the founder of PA. He's the guiding force of bringing the Rosicrucian tradition to America. So he was born in 1644, London, and by 30, what did he have ideas and dreams of? Oh, a utopia where men could worship as they choose. This sounds so great, doesn't it? It sounds perfect. Oh, you should be able to pray to whichever God you want because we don't want to fight wars over this. And I get that. No one deserves to die over this unless you're doing horrible things. But why are all these elite people so concerned with the regular folks being able to worship what they want to worship? Are they really concerned about about you and me, the Joe Schmoes, the average Joes? Or is it because they want to worship something that they'll get killed for if they get found out they're doing? Not only the engineering fee do something like that, damn bay, but the funding that would require, you need to. Amazing point, Skeptic. He talks about the funding to require to do that. And so that's Sinclair's. They're like the Templar OGs. They would have that kind of fund. You're absolutely right, dude. Nothing. It wasn't, I don't imagine they were using the transatlantic slave, trade wasn't really up and running yet at this point. So I find that hard to believe. Templars were one of the richest people in the world. He opened Al Capone's vault. Oh, wow. I wonder what was in Al Capone's vault, David. Maybe his tax records. So the city of brotherly love. Does this make sense? The reason why this is because William Penn, let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. But Penn, as much as he loved brotherly love and free religion, he was a rebel rouser in England. He was in prison 4 times. He wasn't in prison for speaking out against the king, which I'm sure he did. It was because he was doing crazy stuff and he was degenerate stuff. That's why they imprisoned him. And the way he got his land and he eventually, he gets the land from the king because his father dies. The king is deeply in debt to his father and he gives him the whole state of Pennsylvania. I mean, I wonder how much money he was in debt, but what a win, dude. Pennsylvania is huge. Could you imagine just someone saying, the state is yours? Jack, the state is yours. Do what you wish. I mean, first of all, I'd blow up Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Just joking. But isn't that crazy though? Just a whole state just given as a gift. And it was a double-edged sword. He owed money to the Penn family. This guy was causing issues. Get him out. Send him to his place. He can create his stupid utopia. A Templar double cross is where the term comes from. I think you brought that up last time, David, and I forgot already. That's great. That's interesting. So when he got the state of Pennsylvania, William Penn was 36 years old, and he named it Philly, because of the book of Revelations. Brandon might know this if he's still here. The reason why it's named Philadelphia is because one of the letters are written to the Church of Philadelphia. And Brandon has a podcast. Brandon's been on my podcast. He's an awesome biblical theologian, Bible scholar. We talked about Revelation. So you guys can check those episodes out. If you're like me and haven't read the Bible and understand very little, Brandon's a great teacher. So go follow Brandon if you guys haven't followed. So do you remember that letter, Brandon? It was written to the Church of Philadelphia. So I don't know what happens in that letter. I bet Brandon knows, but I wonder if there's any winks and nods in that book. Who's a mediocre? No, you, Brandon, get out of here. You're a great Bible teacher. Blasphemy, dude. What's an 8-pointed cross but 2 crosses? A double cross, if you will. 8-pointed cross but 2 crosses. Oh, okay. I think I get it. I don't know. I need you to draw this out for me, Skeptic. An 8-pointed cross, but 2 crosses. A double cross. Darn it, you're gonna have to send me a message, Skeptic, with a picture or drawing of this. Okay, but so Philadelphia also, not, let's get into Philly. Like Mesopotamia, Philadelphia is between 2 rivers. So Philly is also in a great rectangle with the sun that aligns on the city streets 2 days out of the year, equidistant from the 2 equinoxes. So again, we're seeing architecture that's important. William Penn did the layout. I'm sure he purposely did this. He picked Philadelphia again because it's like like Mesopotamia and between the 2 rivers. Same reason why they picked the spot they did in DC, because there's 2 rivers. They called them the Tigris and the Euphrates with Frank Pope when he was the first one that got the land of DC. So you see, it just adds more and more that so many things are on purpose. Dates of events happening, locations of events happening. I don't see them. I don't know what this means. There's importance to this. That guy who got injured in the Bills from the 1 in a billion chance hit thing or whatever, you guys know, but whatever, his whole thing, it was like 33 days since he did this, or 3 days, some weird number play again. And whether that's a stretch, you can kind of make that work for anything. That kind of makes us look crazy. But it's undeniable that they pick dates for certain facts. He was number 3, Brandon, but there was something else too, like with that 33 got involved. I can't remember exactly. And so in 1682, masonry was not out in the open yet. It was craft masonry. They were building stuff, and they would study actual building. Francis Bacon would get that changed. William Penn, though, the first place he ate in Philadelphia was the Blue Anchor Tavern. Well, I'm sure that's, again, totally by chance that a blue anchor is a Rosicrucian symbol. Ben Salem, this won't mean anything to many of you. Ben Salem's right outside of Philadelphia. It's going downhill. It used to be a very nice area. Now it's infested with drugs and fentanyl and blues, or, drugs. And so Ben Salem, right outside, it was a place where Bacon wrote in his book, New Atlantis. He called the one place Ben Salem. So again, is this by chance that William Penn names this little town Ben Salem? No, I think it's probably a wink and a nod. And Penn would eventually get the full charter for Pennsylvania. It was known as the Great Experiment. Flippy, what's up, dude? Oh, 3 here. Brandon responded about 3 years, number 3 years, 3 months, and 33 of the Bills. Number 33 of the Bills didn't kneel, and his last name is Neal. Ooh, Brandon. See, there's all this stuff, dude. Playing winks and nods constantly. And Brandon, link your show in the, if any, like I said, guys, Brandon's one of the nicest guys. Awesome. Go listen to him. He's knows the Bible amazingly. Winks and nods, Livy. Winks and nods. So thousands, and this is where it's going to get, this is my favorite part of this whole book so far. So it was called The Great Experiment, William Penn. Okay, right? The Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I think my Mr. Charlie's crying. We took him to the park today. We're sprinting. He's getting faster and faster. So thousands of Quakers and German sects, Germany again, something about Germany, came to Pennsylvania. Only a third of PA was English by the time of the Revolution. That's how many Germans, and I forgot who else came to Pennsylvania. But so in 1694, the Pietists arrived. So basically all these Germans that came over and other groups, they were prosecuted religious groups, right? They were Protestant sects that were prosecuted. There was a reason why they were prosecuted. It wasn't because when I think of like the Germans that came, I think of the Amish, the Mennonite, who are very, conservative, very strict. These other groups, no, they were not. They were being prosecuted because they were doing weird stuff. And we're going to get into like the one group, the Pietists. There's this guy, Johann Kelpius. He added the IUS to make his name Latin. What a chotch, dude. adding letters to your name to be Latin, have it a Latin name. But he was part priest, part Rosicrucian, and basically what he taught the church would call heresy. And he was also working with a guy named Jacob Zimmerman, not a Christian, right? And who studied occult philosophies, the Kabbalah, Rosicrucian texts. Zimmerman eventually dies. Kelpius meets with a medium who channels the Virgin Sophia. This is the Gnostic god of wisdom. And so eventually, though, he brings his group over. They land in 1694. Where do they eat? Oh, none other than the Blue Tavern on St. John's Eve. Oh, now what do the Gnostics and Templars, who do they worship? They thought Jesus was, a parasite. Oh, that's right. John the Baptist is the Messiah. And they land at the Rosicrucian symbol and they eat on St. John's Eve. Again, dates are so important. So important. Ooh, Skeptic asked Livy about the she doesn't know the football player, Liv, if you're watching. Her and I, she'll so maybe she can answer for you, Skeptic, better than I can. Oh yeah. So again, we see the significance of dates and times, and we see this today. Sometimes, and again, like I said, sometimes I scoff at numerology. It seems kind of silly when you're like, oh, this word breaks down to this and this. He poops on only Tuesdays, so that means it's raining on Wednesday. But I understand there is significance to it. Dave McGowan talks about how the importance of dates in all of his, and that's in Program to Kill. Every murder, all these huge events happen on certain days. So I do believe in that. There is power in numbers. Tesla thought there was power. Brilliant people thought there's powers in numbers. I just don't know. Some of it I think is a stretch, and some of it I think people want to be the person that's like, oh, look what I've, become viral in the conspiracy world or whatever, and they make things stretch. And then that kind of makes us look a little ridiculous. But yeah, so that I just found that interesting. But this group, they blended Druidism with Rosicrucianism theology. Basically, it was like a doomsday cult, okay? And it was called the Pietists, again, just so you know. Not Pietist. Maybe, it's Pietist, not Pietist, Pietist. So if anybody has heard of you guys ever heard of that. Yeah, see, I tried to tell Livy about all these people earlier, guys, but we don't, I don't want to get, we were going at it. I didn't want to get us into a disagreement, but yes, it's very odd. I mean, all these, last thing before I know I'm jumping all around. There was the left can't meme at all. There was a meme because they posted the football player and then all these other people that have been collapsing, these young athletes that are in great shape. And he did it, the bicycle meme where like this, they hold the stick and they say, why would so-and-so do this? The meme was Americans eating junk food. Then they stick the stick in the bike. Why would the Pokey Pokes do this? And I retweeted it and I was thinking, do you honestly believe that? Whoever made that meme, do you honestly believe that junk food is the reason behind why all these top 1% of athletes in the world, or in America at least, probably the world, because of junk food? Come on, you can't honestly believe that. You cannot. That's ridiculous. But anyway, so they were this doomsday cult, and I found this interesting. They founded a non-sectarian Sunday school. Why do all these groups that are like odd, that are teaching these very new age, woke, Gnostic ideas, why do they always want to have children around? And it's because they want to get their hooks in. So 40 was significant to the Pietists. They had around 40 members. They built a monastery. It was 40 feet. And in 1961, a Rosicrucian lodge was built outside where this monastery was located. And that's right in Fairmount Park in Philadelphia. So from Bacon to Penn Franklin, you had tons of weirdos doing degenerate stuff. And religious belief was out in the open. You had Mennonites, Moravians, Shakers, Society of Friends, and they all helped build the Francis Bacon utopia, and the William Penn utopia, and all these elites utopias. Sir Walter Raleigh, John Dee, on and on and on, where you could practice whichever religion you wanted to get to. And in 1691, from the Palatine, it's a Germany area. It was a cult central. It was initiated into the highest rank of the Rosicrucianism, And he was familiar with all Rosicrucian doctrine, this guy, Conrad Beisel. And I actually went to school with a Beisel. So I wonder, and I'm from PA, I wonder if he's related. There can't be that many Beisels. But he had a great emphasis on science. So again, these people that are coming over, these people searching for religious freedoms, they say they worship God, but really they worship like science. And they're not they say they're Christians, just like our leaders do today. Who's Donald Trump's a great example. He studied Kabbalah. He had a Kabbalah teacher. Do we really think? But he calls himself a Christian. Is in the Bible, does it say delve into magic, play around with spirits? No, you don't. You don't. And now this is what I wanted to talk. I called my dad at 9:30 last night because so there's this group called the Moravians. So there's a Moravian college. So I don't know if any of you guys have heard of that. Skeptic, I'm sure, has, not in Hawaii, but they're this group, the Moravians. And so they're in the town of Bethlehem, which is right by Allentown, where I'm from. They have a Moravian star, which I never thought about until now, and it is a 5-pointed star. But they dominated Bethlehem. They were, and you go on school field trips to go visit Moravian, and it's still colonial, and you get to eat at the Sun Inn where George Washington dined at. And in my mind, they're just like the Amish. They're just like the Mennonite, the Moravians. They're, just like a stricter Protestant sect that was persecuted because they weren't Catholic. Oh, no. And this is the reason why I'm diving into them, one, because they're located right next to me, and two, because this is the type of groups that were coming over to the New World that were being persecuted. So let's go into the Moravians, okay? Well, the history tells you they're not too radical. They were just being prosecuted. Well, they had male and female priests in the 1700s. Pretty radical at the time. Not radical today, but okay, not too bad. They had elaborate rituals celebrating marriage and sex. Pretty radical as well. The men and women lived across the street from each other, even if you were man and wife. And in the tours, which I've been on, they neglect to mention that there's tunnels underneath these colonial towns, and they'd had tunnels underneath the ground. Then they built, and the tunnels to the buildings, did that deal with the weird sex thing? Oh, let's continue. So the Sun Inn in 1758, that was built by the Moravian community, and it connected the tunnels, and it was a hiding place of treasure. Washington slept here, as did Lafayette, as did the Adams, as did several chiefs of several Indian tribes. And the Moravians, this is huge, guys. This is huge. This is insane. So again, the Gnostics, they can go by Moravian, they can go by Templar, they can go by what Kabbalists, they can go by the Ishmaelis, whatever secret society you want to talk about. They all believe the same thing. So let's go into what the Moravians believed. They believe that they discovered that Jesus was also feminine, and that he was actually androgynous, and the Trinity was also, and Jesus were hermaphrodites. Now, why is that important? I'm sure you can imagine why that's interesting. That piques my interest, because the Templars, all this stuff, they talk about raising the feminine and the golden age of being androgynous, how you're part man, part woman. That's how we get to the golden age. We see the rise of transgenderism. So why do all these secret society, these groups, these religious secret society groups, all have the same ideas? I find that kind of weird, huh? The Moravians and their sex tunnels. Yes, skeptic. Isn't that insane, dude? So they believed androgyny was Jesus was androgynous. They also they didn't invent the idea of female Jesus. The Gnostics did many hundreds of years before them, but they claimed that all souls were females. All souls are females. And they also held an erotic love for Jesus. Moravian men would have homoerotic relations, given that they slept with men and the women were across the street. And they would, like I said, man and wife could bang, but you would have to go rent out a little. Oh, we're about to get there. So let me just continue going. And this is what got kicked them out of Europe and prosecuted the Moravians. It wasn't because they were Protestant. It was because they're telling people that Jesus is part man, part woman, that's how you get the closest to God. They're having like erotic dreams about Jesus, talking about having sex with him. I mean, this insane stuff. All men are women. Masculinity is evil. What does this sound like to you? This sounds exactly like the woke nonsense that's pushed out of woke churches today. And that's because the Gnostic, these new age ideas have infiltrated every aspect of our life. The men and women, they could have sex. They would get 15 minutes. You'd book a room in one of the tunnels. You guys would say, all right, we're going to meet there at 2:00 for our weekly bang session. You go in there, you have 15 minutes. So don't dilly dally. You get in there and you get out, because there's another couple waiting right outside there. And if they'll take your time, if they lose a minute from you, they lose the minute. Isn't that crazy? Like, and for this is all. And then also you want to find out about all this information. You want to maybe dig deeper into the Moravians. It's going to be kind of tough, because when you know, guys, they burned all their records. Why would they burn? It just happened totally by accident. The Moravians burned all their records. And there's a place in Pricetown, Pennsylvania. It must be very small because I don't know it. But there stands a church that was dedicated on Friday of the winter solstice. More people of the Utopia dream set out by Bacon. But this church contains a marvel of Masonic Rosicrucian symbols, has 2 columns, 2 pillars right next to the pulpit or the altar, where the priest, the minister speaks, who has 2 columns. Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism. It's all everywhere, though. Windows, ceiling, it's all Rosicrucian motif. And so Massachusetts, this is important too. Massachusetts, very strict, right? They was actually stricter than the old world with what religion the Pilgrims. I mean, they're like the Amish. They're just probably English, I think, or they were English, then they moved to Holland, but that was the strictest. Virginia, it's kind of strict, but not new strict. PA is literally do whatever the heck you want. And so I just find that funny, because again, I asked Odd Man this question like last week or 2 weeks ago. I said, why does Francis Bacon, why does these people, John Dee, these power elites, why are they so gung-ho about freedom of religion? Like, they don't care. Why? And the best thing that I can think of is, again, because they knew they were doing these things in secret. They wanted to be able to do them in the open and not be thrown in jail. And so I think that's it. Yeah. I think that's why they said this. So it's palatable to people. It sounds reasonable. You should be able to worship whichever God you want. And they say, yes, we should. We shouldn't be. And you shouldn't be. But if you're, building tunnels and banging in their tunnels and having a homoerotic dreams about Jesus and talking about having sex with Jesus, I mean, weird, dude. Weird. And no, you're not hurting anybody. So should I really care? No, but I wouldn't want you teaching my children, or I wouldn't want you, promoting your ideas to young people to get them into this idea of just sex. It's always revolved around sex. It's all no God, then all is permissible. Bored aristocrats. I like that as well. I take it the Moravians weren't into tantric sex or edging. 15 minutes, TikTok lover boy. I know, dude, 15 minutes. That's just crazy. I just find that like hilarious. Like somebody's outside, he goes, oh boy, he's not going to make it. Hurry up. Yeah, just crazy. But okay. So that's about so Pennsylvania was the true Rosicrucian ideal. So many wacky religions, so many cults, just sex. Again, it's all the same stuff all the Gnostic stuff we've talked about. That was why everyone flooded to Pennsylvania. Blood, sugar, baby, sex, magic. Isn't that the name of Red Hot Chili Peppers album? Blood. There's an album. Blood, sex. I can't think of it. All right, and this is our last. We got we're like close. We'll be done in like 20 minutes here. So hopefully I just found that's fascinating about the Moravians and just all these. It wasn't just them, like all of these groups that the Quakers, very weird, dude. They were speaking in tongues, would shake over everywhere. And there's these groups. And history, though, tells you today that they're just prosecuted, peaceful people. And, not the case, my friends, not the case. Oh, it's a song. I wonder if Anthony Kiedis has repented. I don't know, dude. Have you ever read Flippy, his book? What's it called? I forget what it's called. I read Anthony Kiedis's biography when I was a Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. And actually I only read half of it. I read the drug aspect. And then once he got clean, boring. Why do I want to hear about how you changed your life, Anthony Kiedis? Tell me how you were shooting heroin at 11 years old. That's what I want to read about. Okay, so now this is the last chapter. It's the American Revolution, the Founding Fathers, and what does Rosicrucianism have to? What role does it play in this? So Benjamin Franklin, he traveled to Ephrata, the one place with the Doomsday Cult, with the people who did magic under the guise of esoteric Christianity. Him and Beisel, we mentioned him earlier, were both involved in the printing press. And so Ben Franklin, he's born 1705 on January 6th, the day that will live in infamy, January 6th. Let's take a moment and think about all those people that died in that horrible, horrible day. Okay, good. I hope you guys are all right. I know it just came up. I was broken all day. Liv kept asking me, why are you crying? Why are you? I said, the democracy was almost overthrown. That's why I'm crying. Can't believe you're not crying. But then when he was born, though, they had a calendar change. So his birthday became to January 17th. And this sounds innocuous, and maybe it is. But again, we keep talking about dates and the importance of dates and these secret societies and this esoteric Christianity, this Kabbalah. And so maybe it was totally by chance, or maybe Franklin chose this date. So some things that happened the day that Jesus' family returned from Egypt after Herod died. Oh, no other Saint Rosalind, her death was in 1329. Nicholas Flamel's first successful alchemical transmutation. And I knew Nicholas Flamel from Harry Potter, and it was recent I learned he was a real person. Verrazano, another Templar pirate that we talked about, he left for America on that day. Henry Lincoln wrote Holy Blood, Holy Grail on 117. Why is that important? Well, that book is all about Jesus's bloodline with Mary Magdalene and the Merovingian kings, what the Gnostics believe. That was written after Franklin, so maybe he picked that day. Interested in esoteric subjects, to practice alchemical formulas, rites, and ceremonies. Ben Franklin did. He eventually becomes the Freemason, then the Grand Master of Pennsylvania. He's a self-made millionaire. Freemasonry allowed him to, helped him get to this self-made. And here again, we're going to tie the occult and spies. It just never ends, guys. It never, ever ends. If you are in the CIA, you are a magician. I truly believe, or a higher up at least. So why do I say that about Ben Franklin? Ugly pimp, he was. He became Postmaster General. Okay, we think of Newman from Seinfeld, maybe. He's a mailman. And except that's not what it was. He wasn't Newman. Being the Postmaster General allows you to be a pretty good spy because you can just read everybody's mail. And at this time, that's exactly what he did and what was expected. He had European counterparts and was high in society there. He was in the Hellfire Club. I don't know if you know about the Hellfire Club, but they would go meet in caves and have prostitutes dress up as nuns. And many other horrible, horrible things. Ben Franklin also had, when in his house, he had 13 bodies buried in his basement, 11 of which were kids. And the excuse is, he was grave digging and doing experiments on rancid bodies. Okay, fine. I'll accept that. All right, sure. He's a very smart guy. He loves science. He's cutting up bodies. Why did he bury it in his house? Little weird. It's going to stink. I'm not imagining houses in colonial time had air purifiers that could whack that smell out. So the cards are not looking great with Ben Franklin as being a stand-up guy. And so there was also England's postmaster was buddies with Benjamin Franklin. He was a Rosicrucian as well. And Franklin was a disseminator of different disinformation, intelligence, propaganda and this was all because he's trying to create the quote unquote utopia that Bacon wanted to create in America. He's members of many secret societies, Ben Franklin, the Lodge of the Nine Sisters in France. He was present when Voltaire got inducted into the Lodge of the Nine Sisters. Voltaire was significantly important in writing the propaganda for the French Revolution, I think, or Thomas Paine. I don't know. It's one or the other. They both were. Maybe it was Thomas Paine. I can't remember right now. Freemasonry is Luciferianism. Agreed. If anybody knows who wrote propaganda for the French Revolution, was it Thomas Paine or Voltaire? Please let me know. And so he was it was one of the most elite lodges. And this Nine Sisters Lodge in France, what do they talk about? They talk about liberty, and people who are key to the military were also in the group, and prominent thinkers who could move public opinion. One member of the Nine Sisters was England's top spy, Edward Bancroft. Again, we just over and over and over and over again. Yeah, Greg, we were talking about Anthony Keaton's Scar Tissue and how the book's great in the beginning while he talks about his drug usage, and then it gets boring as hell. I think Greg let me borrow his Scar Tissue book, so that's so funny. Thomas Jefferson, and we're just going to do 3 other people that are founding fathers. And I hope you're enjoying it. I'm wrapping up soon though here. So Thomas Jefferson, he would reference Bacon in his writings. He's connected to the Freemasons. He's a big liberty guy. They're all big liberty people, freedom of religion. Again, they say these things in my mind to provide them cover. It's not because they actually, just like Elon Musk doesn't care about free speech. These people, the founding fathers of secret societies that created America, they were the same way. I think, I can't see that these millionaires of the time just turned. They were altruistic, and this is a recent phenomenon that they became greedy and manipulated. Thomas Jefferson is mentioned in 29 Masonic journals, but there's no record of his initiation, most likely because it took place in France and because he became a Rosicrucian. He was a big inventor, the folding chair, the swivel chair, loved making chair inventions. He was a chair-focused inventor. He excavated mysterious mounds on his property, wrote about fossils, familiar with chemistry, math, and he served as the president of the Philosophical Society. And of course, as most people know this, he was a deist. So he believed in a God, but avoided the trappings that religion piled on humanity. What does this sound like to me today? Well, you had to be a Christian kind of back in those days. So you call yourself a deist because you're actually worshiping the opposite God, but that's probably where you laid your focus. So you would just call yourself a deist. And he also tried to find, Thomas Jefferson was big in trying to find clues and hidden meanings in the Bible. He rewrote the whole thing. I think, didn't he write it? Sir Tim, or Skeptic, didn't Thomas Jefferson write a Bible that didn't have the miracles in it, or was without the magic part of that? You saw them on Stranger Things laying more pipe than the film. I'm just reading these. That's hilarious. The ancient religion has been controlled for a very long time. Boom, David. That's going on the board. It's going on the board. All right, and we're almost done with Jefferson here. He would have loved the woke churches of today, right? He like the Bible says you shouldn't do this. Oh, they don't mean that. No. That's bigoted. Oh, that's hurtful. The Bible. No, that's wrong. That's kind of what Jefferson reminds me of today. He embedded Rosicrucian codes in his writing. And insanely, this was a crazy part about TJ. The mystery of René Lachateau, which would surface after this time when, the Jesus bloodline and the Cathars were there. This is where the Priory of Sion would meet, according to Holy Blood, Holy Grail. This would happen after Jefferson's time, but it was... But Jefferson was aware of the importance of the Merovingian kings. So he toured the Landau region. This is in the Da Vinci Code. This is the Cathar region. This is Templar homeland. This is Gnostic Central. visited former sites, visited another village, South Terrain Saint Ferriol, who has a subterranean complex of tunnels and is 3 miles from Rennes-le-Château. And the guy who found a treasure supposedly built the stronghold of the Cathars. Ben Franklin also visited this small town. What are the odds of that? That they both visit a Gnostic, previous Templar homeland. If it's a small town, why are they there? What are they doing? There's small towns in America right now. Why are you in France in a small town where Gnosticism and demon worship runs rampant? I don't find it. TJ, I love it. And then he also edited a book, he said, Thomas Jefferson, written by Joseph of Arimathea in the south of France in 54 CE. And he would stare hours gazing at buildings like a lover as his mistress. He modeled his Virginia State Capitol building after many Templar sites, used Freemason buildings to model the buildings he made at University of Virginia and James Madison's home in Virginia. He designed that. Jefferson modeled another building in UVA after the Pantheon of Rome and designed of a place of study. So again, would it be a place of worship? No, because they don't want you to worship Christianity. They want you to worship science, because if you stand for nothing, you fall for anything. And science, you can see it today. I mean, these guys were brilliant. They knew that if they push science, they push free thought, they'll be able to pull people away from their morals, pull people away from whatever they want them to, and they'll be able to fill them with propaganda because you're a free thinker. You're not a stupid Christian who follows, that or whatever. Just weird. And University of Virginia, totally by chance, has tons of secret societies. The Seven Society, the Z Society, the IM Society, LE Banana, and the TILKA. And most notably, the Seven Society is so secret at UVA, more secret than Skull and Bones, the most secret I've ever heard, and especially on a college campus. So somebody, if anyone knows that, I would love to. I don't know anything about them, but the Seven Society was so secret that you wouldn't know who a member was until their death. And when the person died, the only way you would be able to know if they were in this is they would put black magnolias on their grave in the form of number 7. Super spy Frank Wisner, who was involved with, I'm pretty sure he was on the OSS, Nazis. I mean, his name, I remember his name so well. He was a member of the Seven, of this secret society. Jefferson's tombstone, of course, was an obelisk, like any normal person gets, an obelisk tombstone with an inscription that leaves out his service as the president of the United States, but mentioned he was the father of UVA. I don't know why. I have no idea. But George Washington, he was a Mason, carried his lodge with him through the treks of his countries. Half of his officers were on the level Masons. He never advanced a man in rank if not a Mason. 24 of his major generals, listen to this, and 30 of his 33 generals were Masons. Now, why was it, again, was this by chance that George Washington, a Freemason, a Rosicrucian, had 33 generals? I bet not. Where would we be, the West? The Vatican shared the Bible and never charged indulgences. It's a good question, Flippy. Dude, I'm like so confused with the Catholic Church anymore, Flippy. I just don't have an answer, but you're absolutely right. Charging for I think that was like the Borgias who started the charging for indulgences. Brilliant, brilliant, but just weird. Flippy, I don't know. Have I brought this up to you yet? I'd love your take, probably. Like the Catholic Church, Templars hated the Catholic Church. Templars are evil. Are they just two evils fighting over control? Because I think now the Templars, these Gnostics, they're in power for sure now. My opinion. George Washington declined the role of Grand Master, but and anyway, it doesn't matter. His 4 top dogs, all Masons, all Rosicrucians. He played an active role in mapping out the new city. We talked about that. And basically Washington, D.C. was built via astronomy and astrology, the days they laid cornerstones, the way buildings face the west or the east or the summer solstice or the winter solstice. All of this was done by Charles L'Enfant, who was brought a French occultist, and Washington. Eventually, LaFont dies. How it's made in a big pentagram. How the six-sided star. How the six, the star. How Congress, Capitol Hill is at 666. Again, these things are on purpose. Numbers have power, or to their mind, they do. Last one, Thomas Paine. He's a Quaker, a deist. He's famous for his propaganda. He met Franklin in England, got him to America to write his propaganda, Common Sense. It was a huge success. He was a Rosicrucian. And at this time, there's two Rosicrucian groups in America. The Amorc, who Odd Man did a show a long time ago about them, if you don't know that. And then Fraternis Rosicrucius, FRC, which is in Bucks County, which is right by me. And they actually have a pyramid on its grounds in Lux. I've talked to, you guys know Lux from the Cult Rejects. He was the one who brought that up to me, and I didn't know that. It's right down the road. And his views echoed Bacon's. He's not afraid to tell people how he was Rosicrucian. He rejected the monarchy. I think it was Thomas Paine who wrote the propaganda for the French Revolution. He hated the monarchy and its divine rights. He called William the Conqueror a French bastard. See, guys, and again, this sounds great. They want you freedom and liberty, democracy, republics. Well, it didn't work out too well. And I think the only reason why the monarchies ended was because people like the Bank of England, who kind of essentially neutered the monarchy, was able to wage unlimited war against the kings and queens who were protecting their people. In my opinion, I'm a monarchist kind of. And so that's why all these guys, they're all members of secret societies. They all talk a great game, just like Bill Gates talks a great game, just like Elon Musk talks a great game. But with their actions, we realize they don't help us at all. Secret architecture, we talked about all that stuff. And I have other episodes. That's a whole episode in itself, but we kind of just went over that. And I talked about Frank Pope, just how Philadelphia was between two rivers, DC between two rivers, started by a guy, Frank Pope. DC, Maryland was the only Catholic state, or started by a Catholic. You can see where this is. And the 5-pointed star of DC, popular Rosicrucian symbol. And then this is our last quick thing. It's like going to be 5 minutes here. But have you guys ever heard of Knights of the Golden Circle? I heard of them before, but I think I saw it on Dave McGowan's website before. But basically, there's this guy, they're a secret society in America. And Mysterious Monuments is a good reference. Ooh, I'll have to check that out, Flippy. Killed Lincoln. Oh, the Knights of the... Yes, they killed Lincoln. Exactly. So the Knights of the Golden Circle, they're a secret society. There's this guy, Paschal Beverly Randolph. He's a friend of Lincoln. He's a mixed race guy. He's like called an octagoon or something. I've never heard that term. Have you? He called, because he was like Native American, black and white. He called it like octagoon. I've never heard that in my life, though. So if that's offensive, I apologize. I have no idea. But yeah, so he helped bring Rosicrucianism to America, because what does Rosicrucianism preach? We are all equal, right? Which we are. We all are equal, but just I'm comparing like the Moravians, like this free bang everybody kind of thing. But he brought Rosicrucianism to America. The pirates, they were the same way because they were Templars. He traveled with Lincoln's body to the funeral, but he got kicked off the train because he was mixed race. And then Harrison, the first president to die in office, he died suddenly. He was poisoned, most likely by arsenic. He opposed slavery, while his VP did not, wanted states' rights. So the Knights of the Golden Circle wanted slavery. They were in certain areas, they were Texas. Sam Houston was a leader of the Knights of the Golden Circle. They wanted slavery. So allegedly, shortly after Harrison's death, the Knights of the Golden Circle was born in Kentucky, a circle that excluded the free states of the United States. They had passwords, temples, lodges. The grand seal of the Knights is a skull and crossbones, which ties us to the Templars and the skull and bone, the Illuminati, and all these groups. Who uses this symbol, the skull and bones? Clearly, the Knights of the Golden Circle, the Templar pirates. So they use these same octoroon. Thank you, Flippy. Octoroon. I've never heard that before. But so again, they use these symbols because they're the same religion. They're the same exact religion. And they called their lodges castles. That just, again, sounds like another wink of a Templar, the architecture of the Templars. And like I said, they tried to create a large slave state. Texas was their goal. Governor Sam Houston was a member. They were a powerful subversive organization in the United States. They basically, according to this author, started the Civil War. Now, I come from the other side of it, where I believe that the North was the instigator, that this was well within states' right. They were on the way of getting rid of slavery, but by forcing this horrible, disgusting, terrible war. So, I'm just giving you what he said. I don't know if I believe that, but they supposedly started the Civil War, and supposedly this popped off in Fort Sumner in Charlestown, where is that located? Oh, none other than located on the 33rd parallel. And today, the supreme headquarters of Freemasonry is right by on this parallel in Fort Sumner. Secret societies, England was funding supposedly these various attempts on Lincoln's life. England survived on American cotton. Over 13,000 men were arrested. Founder of the Knights of the Golden Circle was charged for spying for England. Then Albert Pike took over the Knights of the Golden Circle. I did not know that. I'm curious, is everyone who had any influence in history a worshiper of Satan? Dude, I don't know, right? That's how it kind of seems, doesn't it? Like, I know that might be like a little, that's probably too much and not correct, but it seems like this people that they mention, write positively about in history books, are bad people. John Wilkes Booth, he's a member of the Knights of the Golden Circle, and one guy raised $1 million to kill Lincoln, 10 million today. This guy, Edwin Stanton, that was implicated in the murder, but stayed above the fray. He had John Wilkes Booth's diary, removed 18 pages, just like how Nixon lost 18 minutes of tapes. The guy that tried to, one of the money guys, he fled to the Vatican, but came back, married Francis Scott Key's daughter, became treasurer of an American steamship line. So I don't know what to make of this story at all, but I don't know I don't get it. I don't know. The Knights of the Golden Circle, it seems like he's putting a lot on them. But I struggle with that, like I said, because the Civil War in my mind it's not as simple as good guy versus bad guy. So Lincoln, he was a tyrant. He imprisoned innocent people. He imprisoned journalists that went against him. But yet the evil people want to kill him. Well, he's kind of bad too, right? So I don't know. That's odd. But so that's our Rosicrucian story of America. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I learned like so much. So I hope you guys learned so much. And I know we're kind of all over the time period and all over different places, but basically the point, I think, and the book is by a guy, Stephen Sora. Oddman's working on another book of his. I highly recommend. He's a great author, but something weird is, and it solidifies in my mind the more I read. There is a kind of, I think David said it, there has been a secret religion since the dawn of civilization that traveled into the Aztecs and the Mayans and the old world and the new world. And that is why all of these, before Christianity came, so violently, and they were cutting out beating hearts to appease their gods. Why are they all doing this? Why do the Mayans and the Incas have the similar stories? Same with the people in the old world have the same, their Genesis story and all these stuff. They talk about these different race beings coming and telling them how to make fire, how to do science, stuff like that. Like, what are the odds of that? Unless there is a global civilization or the Nephilim that spread throughout the world, that spread this info, and they made the people, our ancestors, do these horrible things for the power to be able to build these temples, for the knowledge and the information to maybe whistle and carry blocks that are 200,000 pounds or what have you. So something has been going on for a long time behind the scenes, running our planet. And I think Rosicrucian, it went from the Templars to Rosicrucians. Don't know where it's at today. I don't think, one thing Jesus did was remove the requirement of blood sacrifice. And how huge was that, guys? Everywhere, everywhere. And all this reminds me, all the like the Mayans, especially because I'm listening to Graham Hancock's book. These all remind me of Canaanite rituals, orgies, sacrifice, pedophilia, just ultimate degeneracy, evil stuff. And again, what are the odds that this spread overall? I mean, humans are naturally good. I would like to think that, at least. Like I never thought that was a good idea I should do this to appease God, So, and somebody told these people this, and I don't think that's it's too cool. It's too widespread to just be a freak thing, in my opinion. So that's the show tonight, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to do one tomorrow. Not sure on who's on the show yet or anything. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. And I'll let you know if I pick Opium Inc. or these other books that I'm going to read, and we'll hop right into those. So I hope you learned something. I hope it was entertaining. I do my best. Thank you to the guys watching in the show. Flippy, David, Sir Tim, Liv, my wife, of course, and so many of the other guys that stopped in here. Brandon, if you're still here. So thank you, guys. God bless. Much love. I'll see you tomorrow, 8:30. Take care, everybody. I'm Jack Allen with Conspiracy or Just a Coincidence. Peace.